So guys, we are here back with the Clavichord in my living room where the instruments are. There's the Fritz, you see the organ, there's a Frenzel, there's a little bit of sunshine coming into the lens, but I like it, it gives a kind of mystery effect. I'm about to record the first book of the about to start recording the first book of the Well-Tempered Keyboard by Bach. And of course the clavichord needs to be tuned. So what I'm going to do in this video is fine-tune the instrument, because obviously I have been tuning the instrument just as a preparation. But when you remember the practicing sessions that for reasons of clavichord being here I had to interrupt. It was so much easier to record those in the studio, but anyways, a little bit on that later. The instrument, when I came here, responded rather, didn't feel very healthy. At first I thought like it is because I was used to the pianoforte, but we just recorded the Fifth Symphony, and it happens from that instrument to this is quite a big step. But it turned out that the pitch of the clavichord was higher than normal. So for clavichords you don't have a fixed pitch like in history. Every clavichord has basically its own pitch, and it doesn't go like to crazy heights or lows, but it's around an area. Every instrument has its ideal pitch, and you have to figure that out. Most of the time it's the builder that gives you that range. And so for my clavichord it's, you know, around 404, 408 is still okay, but higher than that the instrument starts to be like very stiff and rigid, and it doesn't, you need to have a kind of flexibility also to make sound. Certainly in the first book of the Well-Tempered Keyboard, where you have quite some chords that are, I wouldn't say not playable on the clavichord, but you have to be on top of your game to play it there. The partitas, for instance, but that's for another video, it's technically more complex music, but it seems to be already with another language, also another technical language. But this is again very interesting. We are here with the first book of the Well-Tempered Keyboard at a very early stage of the clavichord, as I'm playing here, the unfretted clavichord. Again, that's for another topic. So my instrument, when I checked, even after a few weeks only, it turned out that the pitch was around 412, 413, which is the highest that it ever has been. So it turned out that my clavichord was tuned at a pitch of around 412, 413. So clavichords are much more stable in tuning than one would expect. There are among the stringed instruments that are required the least. Compared to that guy over there, really, Alberto and I could write books. And my clavichord wasn't tuned for months actually. I took it even to Germany for a concert where I didn't have to tune. Took it back, was just stable as it was, but sometimes instruments slightly increase or decrease, but increase is as possible as decrease in pitch. And so slowly but certainly it came on 412, 413. And once in a while, of course, you adjust here and there, but in general the bass was a little bit off. That happens. But here, and then of course, then what happens is that the string tension becomes so much higher, it's a lot, that it doesn't feel comfortable. So I brought the instrument back to 404, which is quite a lot, 412, 413 to 412, 404. But that comes with a price, because strings, they don't like to be tuned down. That's for sure. If you're for a concert, never tune the instrument lower. Always go a little bit higher. But I had to do that. So now the instrument is back on 404 for quite a while, but I need to fine tune. And so I thought, why not share that with you? So I'm going to tune it from scratch, do every step of the way, and we can talk along that process a little bit, what I'm doing and how you actually tune a clavichord. So I'm going to take the camera and bring you over here at the instrument. So we're here at the clavichord now, as we were before, a little bit closer. Obviously you have the keys, you have the strings, you have the bridge, and you have the tuning pin. So it's a little bit different than with the piano. So the reason for these clavichords to have, you know, the size they have is partly also because you have to be able to reach the outer tuning pins. Can see if I can see it, yes, and the lowest key. Let me turn the camera just a little bit so you have everything in the picture. In the image. So first things that we do, you have, by the way, larger instruments like in Sweden, and then you really need 2 persons to tune. First of all, we're going to damp the echo chamber of the clavichord. This is really, I don't know if you hear that, my camera is in full automatic mode now, so I don't know if it records, but this is really, if you speak like this, the clavichord is just answering you. And it's partly because of these sympathetic strings, or the sound. They do not influence the pitch, because the pitch is, you know, determined by the length of the string between those 2 points, but they have a function. The clavichord sounds much different when you just mute the sympathetic sounding strings. Then I make advantage of not seeing very far, but very close. I don't know what's the name for that in English. And I'm going to mute. So the clavichord here, it's a fretted clavichord, has 2 strings, individual strings per key. And in order to tune, I just mute one of the 2 strings. It's a little potvliegen trick, but it works. So let's make sure that, there you go, that every string sounds, and now the clavichord sounds like crap. It is. So obviously only the F string is not muted, but that is not so important. We use a little thing like that for at the piano. Okay, now the problem is, now I've tuned a few times and the tuning was not really, the temperament was not really nice, and I'm only going to check right now. For instance, I came across a few notes that were of the fifths and of the thirds were not really nice, and I checked the fifths and I start, you know, fine tuning, hoping that everything will be okay, but it didn't work. So I ended up here, and then I said, okay, I have to retune entirely. So I trust the pitch to be 404, was yesterday the case, so will be the case today. And I do start from A. So concerning temperament, if you follow a little bit the channel a little bit longer, you know that I'm using Werkmeister 1707, which is, if I remember correctly, the Wohltemperierte Harmonia. It's for me the obvious solution to the Wohltemperierte Clavier, which is a kind of equal temperament. So Werkmeister proposed, if you really want to play in 24 keys, well, then you have to lower each fifth with 1/12, which is the definition of an equal temperament. The thing is, however, when you tune by ear, because of the fact that vibrations are faster here than here, you will have natural differences. And for me, but I've made a series on this a long time ago, for me the philosophy is like a temperament should just work. And you have tuners, you have players. For instance, Potvliegen is an unbelievably gifted tuner that will set a temperament that allows you to play in all keys and gives a little bit of color to some keys, and that's a personal preference. The differences are, however, very small. For me, if the tuning works, if I play fifths and quarter in note intervals, because that's for me the key determinative factor, I shouldn't hear the difference in different keys between those, certainly not if you go over 2 octaves, then I'm happy. So for me, the temperament is not a really expressive tool. It is when you go further back in history. Temperament really is an essential part, sometimes not essential perhaps, but it's a really important part of the musical message, like in mean tone temperament. But if you have the transition period to equal temperament, which happens to be the time of Bach, then it's a matter of choice and preferences. And if you don't play in C sharp major, well, what's the reason for your instrument to be compromised to play that key? Because let's face it, equal temperament sacrifices, of course, some keys that were much better into just an average key. So having said all of that, what I'm going to do is just go over the 12 fifths and see which one are off, because some of them has to be off, must be off. So setting temperament is one thing if you tune, and that's for every instrument, of course, similar. What's also similar for string instruments, whether you tune a clavichord or a piano or pianoforte, is the way you set the string. You can just turn a little bit on the knobs here and then play 2 minutes and everything is out of tune again. That's because you have here this bridge where the string makes like, how do you say that? So the pin actually breaks the string and you have an angle there, that's the name, that's the word. And so the angle, of course there's tension there, and by tuning you should be very aware that the tension of this part of the string is almost equal to that part of the string. Because if you don't do that, you will, by playing, just pull the string a little bit back and then obviously it's out of tune. The clavichord makes it very easy because you can give more pressure, which is really cool. Was just checking the camera. Hope the sound is okay, guys. So another thing with historical keyboards, the tuning pins are very, how do you say that, slim. So they're very flexible. I can actually push and pull. It's a similar thing on the pianoforte. You don't turn on, if you don't need to turn the tuning pins, don't. Because if you turn, the string is like out of its comfort zone, and you will notice that the coming days. So we can gently push and pull, and by doing that, we also get rid of this problem because we are pulling the string or we're pushing the string to its best position. Having said all of that, I'm going to take you through the entire tuning process that can go very well. Sometimes it just works, sometimes it's just a big mess. We will see. And clavichord it requires the utmost concentration because, of course, certainly now, one string only with the sympathetic sounding strings muted, the length of tone is very short. There we go. So what I'm doing now is giving a little pressure on one of the two keys. I'm going to press this one a little bit more. And you see, the octave is not really bad, but it's not really in tune. If I give a little bit of pressure here, it's better. So before I'm going to tune this up or this down, I'm going to check another octave. It's pretty okay, pretty much okay. Okay, the E. Yeah, the E is of course off. So I would say, since the problem was that clavichord is too high, let go a little bit slower, lower. So there we go. And then you give a little bit of pressure after the attack to really pull the string all the way. What happens then, if you tune a clavichord especially, the piano is a little bit different, but then suddenly the string becomes flexible and you have a little bit more room. There you go. So there we go. We can go this way, we can go to the E. So let's go to the E. Now let's listen to the fifth. It's a little bit too small, it's a bit too aggressive. I once talked about the little book Bartolt Fritz 1756, where he says you first tune the equal temperament, by the way. You tune the fifth perfectly, and then you have a little bit of margin to the left and to the right, and you tune it, of course, to a smaller degree. But once you go to the perfect fifth, you hear what you have to do. Let's do that. This is almost perfect, so I go a little bit smaller. You give a little pressure after the attack and you hear that the fifth restores to perfect. So that's okay. So the color of the fifth, of course, is something you have to decide, and oftentimes it's just at the end you will hear. So I tuned this a little bit higher, so obviously this is higher. This needs to be. Okay. I don't like this, the color of the fifth, so I go a little bit higher still. Okay, we'll see. That sounds way too perfect. So I go a little bit lower. I'm only getting there now. Sounds okay. So this being lower now confirms the fact that the temperament was not right at the beginning. It's okay. This is okay. So in spite of having tuned the F sharp lower, the C sharp again is okay. Maybe a little bit too fast, but you see that's the difference what I talked about. Some fifths will be a little bit more, a little bit less. All fifths are affected by a small margin, but one a little bit more than the other. So the entire discussion about temperament is sometimes also very abstract, and oftentimes are people who are not very familiar with tuning. I'm not saying all of them, because some people are perfect, unbelievable tuners, and they have a much better tuners than I am, and they have a very strong taste for it, and it's like, it's all fine. I just give a little bit of push and you see how it changes. You may say that, but if you have only to touch the string, the tuning will be very unstable, but that's not the case. Okay. Oh, there we have the E flat or D sharp. If you want to see, also I commented, like I made a lengthy video in the chapel here on C.P. Bach's proposed temperament system. It's used often to say like, they didn't have equal temperament, but I think it's the opposite. It's a very practical way of tuning an instrument. But anyways, that's a fascinating thing. You can have different interpretations. Though openly admitting that you tune according to Werkmeister 17.7, which is equal temperament, it's still today like, don't do it too much. But yeah, I'm used to that. It's fast, huh? But also some color in the B flat. Okay, we'll leave it. Nice. Oops. It's way too small, huh? This is worrying me, that's way too small. Okay. Oh, that was the F sharp. Shouldn't do that, the wrong key. That happens sometimes, be aware. So by pushing and pulling, if you have the wrong tuning pin, if you start turning, then you risk, of course, breaking a string just by messing up a little bit. But you have to remember that, because we have to correct that or we will arrive there again. It's too good. Not good enough. Okay, when you see that sometimes that the string doesn't go higher anymore, that means that by pushing or by pulling, that means that you have reached the limit, the end of the margin, and so you have to turn a little bit. Oops, like here. But you have to always press a little bit on the piano. Strike the key a little forte or fortissimo, not on the forte piano. That's a completely different game. If you want to see us tuning the piano, like Alberto did a wonderful job, we have a video on Patreon. So this is much too low, eh? Either I messed up yesterday or I talked too much now. We will see. It's okay again, so I don't know what happened. Maybe a little bit too high. A wonder happened, a miracle. So, in spite of tuning so many notes, suddenly an octave is right. That could mean that I was messing up yesterday with correcting. We arrived there at the A, it's okay. Maybe a little bit too low. Okay. So that sounds fine. So what I'm going to do now is not check everything because some are tuned, some are not tuned, some keys. Just check the F sharp again before we continue because I touched that. This is not good, eh? Whenever you push a string too high, you have to pull it back, bring it down, and the string doesn't like that. So this is like a mistake you shouldn't make or too often. You see? Okay, we will see about the F sharp. Going to tune the octaves. I will put the timestamp in the video if you want to skip this part whenever we're going to tune the unisons. So you can skip the part. Also when the octave is okay, push a little bit, press a little bit harder, and if you have to retune, do it. There can be like here in the higher regions. Now everything is muted. It's sometimes hard to hear. Here's a lot of color added to the sound. This is, oh, again I'm having the F sharp. What's wrong with me? Again, it shouldn't happen. Doesn't happen too often with me either, but sometimes it does. like moving a piece on the chessboard and you suddenly see that your queen is hanging and you didn't see that. Like, how on earth is that possible? This is something similar. You see how much more difficult the clavichord is to play now, just by having everything with tensions much higher. You don't hear it. You just go to you just go a little bit lower and then go higher or higher and lower. It depends. Okay. And for normal practice purposes, at the time that I played the clavichord, only the clavichord, shouldn't do that. Microphones are positioned. I would go over it much quicker because I was practicing every day. I wanted the clavichord to have in perfect tune all the way, all times, and so. But now it's for a recording, so. We'll see about it later. Okay. 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 And the F should have something of sound, a little bit of sound, please. Okay, so now going down. Okay, what we can check now is how the thirds behave, but over 2 octaves. So, for instance, like this. Everything will sound out of tune. Certainly in this temperament, because the thirds are in this kind of equal temperament, of course, high. Here is much more tension than here. There's a lot. So I see if I have some margin here. Maybe I can pull the D a little bit down. Too much. It's not. It's just a little bit. Okay, this we can check when we tune the 2 strings, and then we'll see. For now, I think it's more or less okay. For me, the main thing is the quarter note and the quarter and the fifth intervals should be like more or less the same, more or less, which is in this system not such a problem. In an unequal system, you have perfect fifths and perfect quarter note intervals, and then it becomes a problem. Whenever you go to the compromised keys, which Bach does all the time, then you have, according to my taste, too much difference. the F, yeah. We don't need these keys for the water and bitter clavier, but anyways. Okay, so now we have tuned the one of the two strings, and hopefully a temperament that works. So let's check what the two strings have to say together. Of course, there you don't have the option anymore to, press a little bit harder, because then the other string will go up in pitch as well. So you have to a little bit guess and go up and down a little bit sometimes. By the way, if you play a period instrument like this, you must tune it yourself. It's a learning curve. I will make a course like step by step for pianoforte and for clavichord, maybe also for the Erard. But it's essential. It's like you build up a relationship with your instrument. What I mean by that, you learn to know it really from the inside. If you have then contact with the person who built your instrument, you can much better translate or communicate whatever you tend to hear, or your wish list, so to say. Some piano builders or clavichord builders or players even like to have the unisons like a little bit off, but I don't. For me, it must be like bats. I want to hear the attack. I will of course shift a little bit while playing, but not too much. Such a difference. You hear? Yeah. giving and taking a little bit, you can actually add color to the instrument. Tuning is, I say, very important. People often say, sometimes say, you don't use the baby, which I do, but here you have it. Here's color in the sound you have to accept. It's better. Okay. And I won't use these here. Bottom with clavier. Okay, so that was it for the tuning part. Let me really go in full automatic mode. I don't know what my camera is doing. Still struggling a little bit with my Fuji, gift by the patrons, by the way. And now that the clavichord is tuned, I'm going to start. Of course, the clavichord will need fine-tuning always, like a little bit here, a little bit there. We're talking about details, guys, but there was something wrong with the temperament, so I thought let's take the opportunity to show you what I'm doing with the tuning, because many of you actually ask what the temperament is of the clavichord. Do I retune a lot of times? And the answer to that, I already gave you that. No, whenever the tuning is correct, leave it there. And it grows on you, you know. It's something, the whole discussion again about temperament, it's important, it's very fascinating, but it sometimes leads to black and white positions, and it's not that. It's also depending on what kind of literature you play. Do you play on, do you talk about an organ, which is of course another universe? A harpsichord is again another universe. So every type of instrument, depending on the literature you play, will require different solutions, and that's of course the nature of doing, well, research or just practical research. Like I'm sitting here and the tuning needs to work. So what I'm going to do with while I'm recording, because that will take a month and a half, I think. I will try to record the sessions. I will obviously tape it on video here, and the raw material, the raw sessions, so the entire sessions will go on Patreon. And so if you want to follow the entire process, also me giving a little bit of, you know, not explanation, but just after the recording, say it, expressing or just ventilating or just formulating my thoughts on how it went, what the decisions were that I made. There is a Patreon page, you know that, the link is in the description box, you can go there, and then I will see you on the other side, so to say. Don't forget that we have also there monthly hangouts, and now we came up with a cool idea. It's not fully realized yet, but to create a place where patrons can actually share their recordings, the things that they're practicing on, and so we create this little community of people who are actually looking after each other. And in these monthly hangouts, I'm there. I can check that page once in a while, and we can have just a little bit of a chat around that as well. So if it's something for you and want to follow this, then please check it out. I would very much appreciate that. And then we are going to release this recording, definitely like all the others, on digital streaming platforms, all of them, and have Kickstarter campaigns for you actually to opt in or to subscribe if you would like us to make a CD or a vinyl disc, which would be really, really cool. We're working now with a very talented designer in France who is preparing 3 templates for the authentic sound recordings, one for the metronome related recordings, one for the clavichord related recordings, and one for the organ recordings. But yes, because yes, that will be my next project, recording 2 albums in Leuven. So hope this was informative for you guys. Again, stay tuned. I will make some courses that go really in depth on tuning, because I know and I can hear sometimes when some of you share recordings with me that tuning is something that is like, I wouldn't say a liability, is that the correct word, but something that keeps musicians that own an own instrument who want to take care of that, like it's kind of an effort, and sometimes you just need to have the basic principles there and just to practice, and then it's going to be all okay. Okay, if you're still here, thanks for hanging out with me that long, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. This is of course something completely different than tempo research, and actually it isn't, because we measure hertz in the whole beat system as well. Actually, I didn't tune 4/4, I tuned 8/8. Having said that, we see each other soon again. Bye.